Time seemed to have stood still here. But far away beyond the pass, everything was undergoing unprecedented changes. The clatter of weapons on ancient battlefields had become a distant memory. The use of gunpowder ushered in a new era of warfare. Numerous cities and beacon towers had crumbled with time. Even the dynasty that built them had long perished. This ancient frontier fortress, where the Great Wall met the Silk Road, had somehow reached a historical turning point unseen in millennia. The once greatest pass under heaven stood tottering against the changing times, like a hero past his prime. It seemed to be doomed for oblivion. But suddenly, the long-absent sounds of hooves, camel bells, and footsteps came from afar once again. On this legend-laden fortress, time started anew again. During the War of Resistance, it was the only Great Wall fortress never captured by the enemy. Over the past 2 centuries, this fortress flourished through trade, before fading into obscurity as the country declined. Finally, due to its legendary location and unparalleled symbolic significance, countless explorers came flocking. Among them were a young explorer who would become an anti-fascist hero and the president of Finland, and an aged pathfinder whose lifelong dream was bound to this place. From different places, and with different purposes, they reached this fortress and left behind many photographic records. March 21, 1910. This date was accurately recorded. Near Jiayuguan at the foot of the Chilean mountains appeared a caravan led by foreigners. The caravan departed from Beijing, traveling westward along the ancient Silk Road. The leader was the Times chief correspondent in China, the 48-year-old Morrison. This Australian, who had been passionate about travel since childhood, earned a medical doctorate in the UK, but regarded travel, exploration, and ultimately journalism as his true calling. In February 1894, he attached a long fake queue inside his hat, put on a Chinese-style robe, and departed from Shanghai for a journey across China's southwestern interior. This journey and his travelogue earned him the Times' attention. He was then hired as their correspondent in Beijing. In March 1897, Morrison arrived in Beijing, beginning his 15-year career in journalism. Having just emerged from the First Sino-Japanese War, China was entering an era most turbulent in its modern history. It became the target of imperialist powers' scramble and partition. As a journalist, Morrison witnessed in person major reforms in the late Qing dynasty. After arriving in Beijing, Morrison quickly embarked on his first expedition. He followed the proposed Northeast Railway, traversing the entire Manchuria from Vladivostok. This expedition made him perceive Russia's expansionist ambitions in Manchuria. At that time, almost the entire readership of the Times knew this Morrison in China. The point of Morrison's Northwest China expedition coincided with a crucial period in the late Qing history. This long-planned journey began in spring 1906. Back then, Morrison, returning from his UK vacation, was struck by China's changes.
I find that the city is being transformed. Macadamized roads are being made everywhere. Every important house is lit with electric light. The streets are lighted by electricity. There is an excellent telephone system. I have no doubt that before long we shall have electric tramways.
Morrison saw this ancient land awakening with new vitality. He decided at once to showcase the fruit of the new politics to the world. But the editor-in-chief of the Times far away in the UK held a commonly shared Western view: that China remained a land in stagnation in East Asia. After nearly a year of negotiations, and with the support of Qing officials, Morrison's reform observation trip was finally realized. Yet Morrison, who yearned to explore every corner of China, bypassed those developed southeastern coast and treaty ports. Instead, he headed to the least accessible and poorest northwest region. Not merely because it was uncharted territory for him, but because he believed the remotest regions could best reveal the true depth and reach of the new politics. For this long-awaited trip, Morrison spent lavishly on photographic equipment before departing. Unlike his previous journeys, He personally operated the camera, documenting the trip with nearly 1,000 photos.
I saw. The road stretched bare through barren plains. A monotone of ashen gray. Save where the graves were crowned with trees. In squalid huts people lay, pipes pressed to opium.
Decaying towns. Abject poverty. And vacant stares. Though the new politics were reshaping China, no springtide of renewal had yet reached her western hinterlands by 1910. Water shortages, sandstorms, and rough roads plagued Morrison. Yet he pressed westward undeterred. This journey featured one historically significant pass that he anticipated most. After over 2 months' trek, Morrison finally saw on the horizon the legendary fortress he had long dreamed of visiting. Eagerly, he captured a blurry photo of it from a distance. Then, they continued westward to the fortress.
This rammed earth fortress was in ruins.
Within the desolate walls, only vacant ruins remained. He scanned around standing on the fortress. While spring had come to South China in March, the northwest remained bleak. In winter's icy grasp. Well versed in Chinese history, Morrison didn't just see Jiayuguan as a lone derelict fortress. He understood its historical significance and the grander system to which it belonged, namely the Great Wall. The Great Wall was the most captivating Chinese landmark for Westerners at that time. In the early 20th century, Industrial Revolution-inspired progress spurred rapid development in European social anthropology and archaeology. Industrialized European nations developed a great fascination with foreign cultures. From Egyptian pyramid excavations to Babylonian ruins in Mesopotamia, explorers adventured across African savannas and rainforests. Just 2 weeks before Morrison reached Jiayuguan, airplanes surpassed trains for the first time as the world's fastest transportation method. At the same time, construction began on the world's largest and most luxurious ocean liner, the Titanic. That same year, American explorer Peary became the first Westerner to reach the North Pole. This exploration fever reached the East as well. The most coveted destination was called the Great Wall. Long before any explorer actually reached the Great Wall, the West had already experienced a Great Wall fever. The travels of Marco Polo described that. In the distant East, where imperial power stood supreme, and life proceeded orderly, there rose a wall, first built before Jesus Christ was born, stretching thousands of kilometers, and under continued construction for millennia. Voltaire wrote an essay on the manners and spirit of nations.
The Great Wall extends over 10,000 kilometers and winds over mountains and through valleys. In purpose and scale, it is a marvel that surpasses Egypt's pyramids.
Such a majestic structure naturally sparked their fascination. Over the following centuries, people gradually uncovered the Great Wall's true face. Through correspondence, maps, sketches, and copper prints from missionaries. After the Opium Wars, the Qing Empire opened to foreigners, and Westerners flocked in to behold the Great Wall. Besides the walls near Beijing, the mysterious western end of the Great Wall, stretching into endless deserts, Jiayuguan, the greatest pass under heaven, inspired more poetic imagination. Going westward, to the westernmost pass, became an unquenchable fire, burning in explorers' hearts. In 1874, Captain Sosnovsky of the Russian General Staff led a Russian research and trade expedition to China. In the team, besides geologists, scientists, and interpreters, there was a photographer named Boyarsky. His photographic equipment alone required several wagons, taking up most of the luggage space. On August 1st the next year, they reached Jiayuguan. The photographer used his bulky equipment and captured the fortress's first photos. On November 29, 1907, a Russian officer under the code name Ma Da-hun rode on horseback into Jiayuguan as a Russian-Finnish baron, an explorer. In his diary was an account of Jiayuguan.
The Great Wall in my imagination was far grander than the one in reality. It has fulfilled its purpose over millennia. Yet to the Chinese, it hasn't lost its symbolic significance. As we rode through the gate, the evening bells tolled, their chimes resonating through the starry night.
Ma Da-hun's expedition concluded in 1908. Then, he returned to Finland, dedicating himself to its independence. At the age of 77, he was appointed by the parliament as President of the Republic of Finland. In 1908, a year after he left Jiayuguan, and 2 years before Morrison's arrival, an American explorer called William Edgar Gile arrived at Jiayuguan. From the Great Wall's east end, Shanhaiguan, he trekked westward for 82 days, becoming the first Westerner to document the entire span of the Great Wall. Having witnessed this monumental work in human history, all those explorers felt the disparity between their imagination and reality. They lamented the isolated stagnation and vulnerable defense of the Northwest.
The fortress now serves mainly as customs. There are no garrison troops, other than some stone piles along the wall to deter thieves. No defensive measures remain.
On this land, where stagnation and progress, destitution and hope coexisted, Morrison still saw new civilization growing on this barren soil. After returning to the UK, he made a speech at a forum, titled, The Awakening of China, urging the West to change their fixed mindset on China, by drawing from his observations in northwest China. He believed, while many things about China deserve criticism, there are more that deserve praise. The awakening of national awareness. The spread of Western education. Military reform attempts. The growth of the domestic press. And nationwide support for the government's opium prohibition efforts. All these demonstrated the Chinese people's remarkable candor and courage. In spring 1911, Morrison returned to Beijing from his Northwest expedition. That year, the Wuchang Uprising broke out. The imperial system came to an end after its birth 2,100 years ago. The Republic of China replaced the Qin Empire. In the same year, Morrison concluded his career as a correspondent and became an advisor to the new republic's president. His Northwest journey in 1910 was both his most significant and final major expedition. Nearly 1,000 photographs taken by him preserved the last visual records of Qin-ruled Northwest China. He wrote to his Chinese friends.
During my trip, I took many beautiful photos, which I believe you'll appreciate, as they would represent before you your beautiful country and people.
However, neither today, nor back then, would Chinese viewers consider those images of stagnation and progress beautiful. They would rather give them grave mixed feelings. Just like Jiayuguan and the ancient Great Wall would. In 1912, in a Shanghai newspaper, there was a serious discussion about the Great Wall. Should it be torn down or not? Some argued this lengthy structure was crumbling and symbolized feudal backwardness. Moreover, it couldn't stop modern invaders. It had lost practical purposes and would only hinder exchanges. The useless Great Wall theory became a heated public debate. The Great Wall, one of the 7 wonders of the world, was first built out of desperate necessity. The agrarian civilization of the Central Plains, long bothered by northern nomads' incursions, was forced to build walls along the borders. After extensions through dynasties, it reached its zenith during the Ming Dynasty. The 8,800-kilometer Ming Great Wall, skillfully built, traversed mountains and the Gobi Desert. Standing today as the Great Wall, known to the world. Yet this impregnable defense failed completely against the Manchu cavalry. Manchu forces easily breached Jiayuguan Pass, rendering the Great Wall useless. Still, countering the useless theory, some staunchly defended the Great Wall.
China's most renowned terrestrial work is the Great Wall. Without its protection, China would have fallen to northern tribes. during the Chuhan period far before Song and Ming.
Was the Great Wall a symbol of isolationism and ostracism? The debate continued. Even though the Great Wall system represented by Jiayuguan had long become obsolete, Morrison noticed that an ancient site that had been long lost was returning to this land. He wrote the following words. After the journey,
the great trade route closed for centuries has reopened. Marco Polo once took this path from Khotan to Jiayuguan. Now more caravans travel on it, unimpeded every year.
In the late Qin dynasty, Jiayuguan became a foreign trade port alongside Tianjin. Tea exported from here to West Asia and Europe accounted for 1/3 of the overseas tea market. In Morrison's time, transportation and global expeditions were transforming the human world from isolation to interconnectivity. Before that, human interactions in Eurasia, including travels, explorations, and cultural exchanges, relied more on the great trade route, closed for centuries, the Silk Road. The Great Wall terminated at Jiayuguan, but the Silk Road continued further into deep Asia. This millennia-old route still commanded an irresistible pull to new explorers. The summer of 1933 in Nanjing was rather sweltering. A lavish dinner party was underway in a beautiful mansion. The guest of honor was the legendary explorer, Sven Hedin. When he showed up at the party, Wang Jingwei, president of the Executive Yuan, was surprised. Because this Nordic was not big and tall, but rather small. His glasses made him appear scholarly. His formative years coincided with Europe's global exploration craze. In 1880, when the Swedish explorer Nordenskjöld returned from his successful Arctic exploration, he was received with grand acclamation in Stockholm. Among the crowds, a 15-year-old boy was deeply inspired by the event, and he was determined to become a great explorer. This boy, whose name was Sven Hedin, would later shake the world of exploration. 5 years later, the 20-year-old Hedin, during an Asia-crossing journey, became fascinated with the continent's landscapes. The next spring, he completed a journey across Persia and Mesopotamia. After that, furthering his journey to penetrate Asia's heartland became his enduring pursuit. On February 17, 1895, 2 days before his 30th birthday, Hedin began his first expedition in West China. What lured him there was that silk-named ancient route. But when Hedin arrived there, this once vital artery in human land transport had vanished under sands.
What we witness now is the Silk Road, mired in desolation, devoid of life. Commerce barely survives. Settlements along the way are ruins upon ruins. Only by imagination can we glimpse those vibrant tableaus of antiquity and prosperity, where caravans and travelers would rejoice upon reaching a new oasis.
Through endless deserts, Sven Hedin kept looking for traces of civilization. He crossed the Mongolian Gobi Desert and trekked on the Qinghai Tibet Plateau to map Tibet. He investigated Lop Nor and discovered the ancient city of Lolan. Rich exploration experiences and knowledge of West China gained him a secret commission from the government of the Republic in his 60s.
I realized immediately my destiny was taking a transformative turn. I was already envisioning how this expedition might serve the Chinese government. A chance to reciprocate the warm hospitality I have received since first setting foot on Chinese soil. No one could match my sincere desire to deliver tangible benefits for China. Should another expedition arise, I might still be able to explore the unknown sections of the Silk Road.
Nanjing's urgent invitation had something to do with China's neighbor, Japan. At the time, Japan was encroaching upon China and trying to control Mongolia. Meanwhile, the Republic was losing control of its western provinces, which meant a perilous lack of buffer zones and maneuver space. In its resistance strategy, Hedin proposed building a railway and a highway to Xinjiang to enhance connectivity with the northwestern frontier. This proposal was soon approved by the government. 2 months later, Sven Hedin was hired as a highway survey advisor to the Ministry of Railways, tasked with building a team to survey routes in the northwest. On October 21, 1933, Sven Hedin departed Beijing with his team, with 4 trucks and 1 car, funded by the government, heading for Hohhot. Their planned route would traverse Inner Mongolia into Xinjiang, survey provincial road networks, and then return via Dunhuang in the Heshi corridor. A year-long expedition in total. Before departure, many urged Hedin to give up, as the situation in northwest China was complex. It was perilous with rampant banditry. But Hedin wouldn't change his mind, and pressed westward resolutely. The trip went smoothly at first, but upon entering Xinjiang, they were caught in regional warfare. Xinjiang was then engulfed in conflict between Xing Shizai, a warlord, and Ma Zhongying, a rebel of Hui minority. Unaware of the situation, when they entered Xinjiang, Hedin's team was forced by the military to transport Ma Zhongying from the front line. The enraged Xing Shizai became convinced they were committing espionage and detained Hedin's team in Urumqi. Hedin continuously negotiated between the nationalist government, Soviet agents, and local warlords. After 6 months, he finally bought their freedom with one truck. The team raced eastward, toward the long-awaited Gansu. Tasting freedom after captivity, Hedin felt excited about the approach of a legendary fortress.
Our vehicles went through a narrow pass among stone mounds, reaching the Central Empire's famed gateway, Jiayuguan. We stood before one of humanity's grandest hand-built structures, the Great Wall. On its rampart, the old fortress unfolded below like a map. Every battlement window framed a vista breathtaking.
At Jiayuguan, Hedin was reminded of his mentor, the archaeologist who named the Silk Road, Professor Ferdinand von Richthofen. From 1868 to 1872, this renowned geographer spent 4 years personally surveying 13 Chinese provinces. Although his Xinjiang expedition was interrupted by war, he could never forget that ancient route connecting China and Central Asia. He instilled his passion for that route into his student, Sven Hedin.
It's no overstatement that this transportation artery was the longest road across the Old World. From cultural and historical perspectives, it was the most important tie that bound all peoples ever existed and all continents. Silk was the thread connecting peoples, giving rise to a never-ending trade route. If the Chinese government could revitalize the Silk Road with modern transportation, it would contribute greatly to humanity, while leaving an indelible mark in history.
In February 1935, after completing the 2-year highway survey, Hedin returned to Nanjing. Upon his arrival, the Japanese consul general presented him with a personal letter from Prince Tokugawa, cordially inviting him to visit Japan. At the time, the Japanese military had long been gathering intelligence along China's northern frontier. The newly returned Hedin undoubtedly possessed lots of first-hand information. Hedin could see through Japan's intentions and rejected the invitation flatly. Soon, he submitted his Northwest Expedition report to the nationalist government and was received with honors by Chiang Kai-shek, Wang Jingwei, and other officials. Hedin warned about Japan's ambitions in China's western regions and stated the importance of reviving the Silk Road. However, for a government buried by mounting crises from home and abroad, revitalizing the Silk Road was an impractical task. A month later, the 70-year-old Hedin concluded his almost half-century life in China and returned to Stockholm, Sweden.
It was in the purpose of tracing that road that I was appointed a leader of the great expedition that has been traveling now for 1.5 years. Now the caravans go there in 3 months from China proper to Xinjiang. If we have a motor car road, you can do it easily in 10 days. And that's very important from commercial and financial point of view, finally. And the results of this journey, from technical point of view, are very, very rich and very promising. And we are contemplating building a highway from the Pacific to the Atlantic, straight through Central Asia. Thank you, goodbye.
A lifetime of exploration was thus concluded. This weather-beaten old man received the honors he deserved. He was welcomed home like a hero, as he had dreamed of in his youth. And he left his deep feelings for China. Along that ancient Silk Road he had traveled on. 2 years after the expedition, in 1937, just as Hedin had predicted, a full-scale war broke out. Japan wanted to conquer China with lightning speed. The Chinese nation was facing its gravest peril, which was approaching step by step. On September 18, 1931, Japan occupied the long-coveted northeast China. A year later, Manchukuo was formally founded. In 1933, Japan frequently pressed towards Beijing and Tianjin. Fierce battles raged along the Great Wall. After 5 months of battles, the nationalist government was forced to make concessions. Then, the Tonggu Truce Agreement was signed. Under this agreement, Chinese troops had to withdraw 100 kilometers south of the Great Wall, and were forbidden to cross the line, while Japan could legitimately conduct aerial reconnaissance over the area. Although the nationalist government never officially recognized Manchukuo, this agreement effectively made the Great Wall a national border. On postcards and propaganda posters in Japan then, the Great Wall appeared frequently, as if it had become Japan's picturesque landmark.
We know no such thing as Manchukuo's borders. We only know our land was stolen, and all citizens bear the responsibility to reclaim it. Today the enemy decides the Great Wall is the border, and tomorrow, it may become the Yellow River.
After the Great Wall became the confrontation line, Japan sought to encroach and advance beyond it. In early January 1933, Japan occupied Jiayuguan. By early April, Japanese forces had controlled most of the Great Wall sections in Hebei. To showcase this major achievement, photos of Japanese troops on the Great Wall were widely printed and distributed, as if to declare to both peoples that China's symbol was already under Japanese control. After the fall of Jiayuguan and Jiayuguan, the Ming Great Wall's west end, the greatest pass under heaven, Jiayuguan, was still in Chinese people's hands. The useless Great Wall debate died down. The meandering Great Wall became a symbol of the nation's backbone. as the pioneering explorer Sven Hedin had foreseen.
After centuries of hibernation, its people are awakening, starting to feel their strength.
Or as Ma Dehun observed,
A renewed and awakening China is no longer a much expected but unrealizable dream, nor a distant possibility. It is a concrete reality, loudly proclaiming its existence. It is a fact that none can afford to ignore.
originally part of China's shield, now more crucial in the national crisis. Jiayuguan, this weathered fortress, standing firm through time, offered strength and hope to every Chinese. The horn had sounded. The cry of awakening and resistance resonated in every Chinese soul.